go down in history as less than 2 hours before the deadline expired. And remember, US President Donald Trump warned that he will wipe out entire civilization of Iran. He has now announced a 2-week conditional ceasefire with Iran. He has said that major objectives have been met and that a broader agreement could be finalized within the next 2-week window that he has given. He has also confirmed that Iran has submitted a 10-point proposal calling this workable basis for negotiation, while both the sides have paused attack on each other. Now, we're learning that the ceasefire remains conditional and fragile for now, with diplomacy now racing against time. Iran has also confirmed a 2-week de-escalation after Donald Trump's ceasefire announcement, with the foreign minister saying that there will be halt on attacks on Israel and the US bases in Gulf countries if the attacks on Iran are stopped by both the nations. He also went on to add that safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be allowed during this period under coordination with Iran's armed forces. So those are the conditions that have been put out by both the countries, and that is perhaps why we are calling this a conditional ceasefire that is there in place. Let's give you more information as far as the 2-week ceasefire is concerned. Both the sides have put out posts on social media, and they have mentioned, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, that they have agreed to suspend bombing for the next 2 weeks. Iran has said that there will be halt on attack on Iran, and they will also be stopping strikes on the Gulf countries, on Israel as well. Donald Trump has said that Iran has agreed to a safe passage, safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has said that safe Hormuz passage possible for the next 2 weeks. Donald Trump has said that this will be a double-sided ceasefire for the next 14 days. Iran has said that the ceasefire is not the end of the war, and that is quite important, because this is actually not the end of the war. This is a ceasefire that will go on for, in fact, another 14 days, and it remains to be seen how this really pans out and what, in fact, is the end result of this as well. So that is the latest as far as the war in West Asia is also concerned. I'm joined by my colleague and consulting editor, Shinjoy Chaudhary. Shinjoy, do take us through the ceasefire plan that is in place, what Iran and US have said so far.
Yes, both sides have declared victory. That's the basic point. And they have said that the ceasefire has happened, and the Americans have said, President Trump himself has said, over a period of time, that regime change has happened. That's what's the war. That was what the war was about, regime change. And he himself has said that regime change has happened. He has said that all major objectives have been met. On the Iranian side, they have said that, well, we have defeated the West, the Americans and the Israelis, primarily because they have realized that they cannot gain any victory by continuing to bomb us. And the closing of the Strait of Hormuz has actually scuttled their economies. That's the point that they have made. So at this point, both sides have declared victory. It also must be remembered that when something like this is said, these statements are made, they are not made only for the world. They are made for their own people. So Iran has to make these statements for their own people, their 90 million people. The Americans have to say what they have to for their 330 million people.
The point is that both the sides have declared victory, but next 14 days are going to be very important. It remains to be seen whether there will be escalation if no resolution is achieved in the next 2 weeks. Stay on with us. Let me also introduce our guest, Pathikrit Pen, geopolitical analyst. Thank you so much for joining us. Peter Kusnik, who's an author and professor of history and director of the Nuclear Study Institute at American University. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Times Now. Coming to you, Pathikrit Pen, first, take us, in fact, through what is your assessment of the ceasefire plan that is currently in place? because I will come back to you, but we have a breaking update coming in. Tehran residents are celebrating after ceasefire announcement. We're learning that there are celebrations in Iran that are happening after the ceasefire announcement that was made by Donald Trump just a while back. There is a sigh of relief, and perhaps that is the reason why in Iran we are witnessing celebrations there on the streets. And those are the visuals on your screen of the celebrations, people taking to the streets with the flag of Iran and in fact rejoicing over the ceasefire plan that has been arrived at. For the next 14 days there is going to be no bombing in Iran, and this is coming after, remember, just few hours back Donald Trump has said that he would be wiping out the civilization as far as Iran is concerned. But just 2 hours before the deadline was to expire, he has now announced that there is now ceasefire plan in place for the next 14 days.
Well, any kind of cessation of conflict, even if it's temporary, is always a welcome step. We welcome it. But at the same time, am I audible?
All right, stay on with us. We are keeping our focus on the visuals that are coming in from Tehran. As you can see on the screen, the celebrations that are happening. Let's get you another breaking update coming in. Protesters have gathered outside the White House following U.S. President Donald Trump's ceasefire announcement. What is the reason behind that? We'll connect with a reporter for more on that. But there are celebrations in Iran that are happening. But protesters have gathered outside the White House following the ceasefire announcement that Donald Trump has made. And those, in fact, are the visuals on your screen of the protesters there on the streets outside the White House, asking Trump that stop the attack and the war on Iran. Stop Trump's war, and those are the placards that they are carrying. In fact, right outside the White House is what we are learning so far. So coming back to you, Patikrit, once again, sorry for interjecting. We can see celebrations in Iran, but also protests outside the White House, and this has come after the ceasefire announcement by Donald Trump. What is your assessment of this?
Well, first of all, any kind of cessation of conflict, even if it is temporary, is always a welcome step. It's going to help the world economy. It's going to give some relief to the people of Middle East. But I think it's all, this 14-day ceasefire might just go away, probably even within 2-3 days. That's my fear. We have heard that term, that Trump always chickens out, taco. It has been emphasized and,
right.
Proved all over again. Why would you say that you would wipe out a civilization? Secondly, what has been made? What is the end game today of United States? Is regime change happening? No, its regime change has not happened. The regime remains as it is. The regime has been made more popular by Trump among the people of Iran. Has the Strait of Hormuz been opened? No. Number 3, has Iran declared that they are going to give up on its nuclear ambitions? No. So I think, and fourth, has Israel agreed to this ceasefire? Well, there's a very big question mark. We will not be surprised if today night itself Israel starts bombing, Iran all over again. So there is absolutely, my understanding, there is no convergence, no, bondage between the Americans and the Israelis so far as the end game of this conflict is concerned. The Americans have kept on shifting their goalposts. First, they said about regime change. Right. Second, they talked about opening Strait of Hormuz. Third, they talked about this one, which is the giving up of nuclear weapons. And fourth, they talked about containing the Iranian, armed forces. None of that, I doubt, is ever going to happen, whether we like it or not. So I am not an Iranian regime supporter, but I'm saying this war has been badly planned. And this ceasefire, I will not be surprised if it goes away, even probably in 2-3 days. Back to you.
Absolutely. So next 14 days are going to be very important. And in fact, it remains to be seen what really happens as far as the talks are concerned, whether there will be direct talks, whether all the parties, that is Iran, Israel and US, will come on a table and hold a discussion. Let me get you more details as far as the ceasefire agreement is in fact concerned. Iran has set the terms. Remember the 10-point plan that they had put forth to end the war. Number 1 was permanent end to the war, no temporary truce. But for now, they have agreed to a 14-day ceasefire, also mentioning that this does not mean that the war has ended. Number two, stop Israeli strikes in Lebanon. As far as Hezbollah, their proxy in Lebanon is concerned, stop all the attacks that Israel has been launching. Lift all the U.S. sanctions, so that will remain a friction point. No attack on Iran-backed allies, Hezbollah in Lebanon as well. Full ceasefire on all the fronts as far as the war is concerned. Guarantees against the future attack that there will be no attacks on Iran in the coming future as well. So give us a guarantee that that would not happen. A 2 million fee per ship passing through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is what Iran wants. Sharing of the fee with Oman. So it remains to be seen how that really pans out. Number 9 is the safe passage guarantee system as far as the Strait of Hormuz is also concerned. And number 10 is rebuilding infra using the transit revenue. So that is one of the points that they have, in fact, made, that they want the damages for the war to be paid as far as reconstruction of the entire country is also concerned. On that, we have another breaking update coming in. And this is, in fact, the ceasefire plan, the ceasefire announcement has come in as a sigh of relief, as we are learning that oil prices have plunged even more after U.S. announced ceasefire. Oil has slumped below $100 per barrel. Price have dropped after this crucial announcement that has been made. And this has come after, in fact, as we know, that as far as the Strait of Hormuz is also concerned, that might also open up in the coming days. Peter Kuznick, I'm going to come to you on that. You're the author and professor of history and director of Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. So I want to ask you about the nuclear capability, because when the war started, one of the objectives that U.S. said, one of their objectives was to wipe out the nuclear capability, military capability, change the regime, and also ask people to take over the streets. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that all the objectives have been achieved. The major point of friction was the Strait of Hormuz, so that remains in place. How do you look at the ceasefire framework that both the countries have agreed to?
I would say that none of Trump's objectives have been achieved.
All right.
And that's good, because they were not valid objectives. It was an illegal war based on international laws, an immoral war, and a war that Trump lied the country into. But I think he sort of achieved one of his goals. He talked about regime change. Well, he didn't achieve regime change in Tehran, but I think he did achieve regime change in Washington. The Republicans are so unpopular now. Trump's approval rating is so low, record lows, that the Republicans are going to get their heads handed to them in the midterm elections in November. So I think Trump did achieve that. But in terms of his stated objectives, he's achieved none of them. Under the Obama's old JCPOA, which Obama negotiated in 2015 and Trump tore up in 2018, Iran was at least a year, if not longer, away from having a nuclear bomb.
All right.
Now we don't even know. The Ayatollah, who Israel killed in the beginning, issued a fatwa in 2003 against Iran having a nuclear weapon. His son does not need to abide by that. The fatwa died with him. Iran could quickly develop nuclear bombs because under the old agreement, Iran was enriching up to 3.67%. Now they're enriching up to 60%. Under the old agreement, they shipped out 98% of their enriched uranium. Now they've got almost 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium to 60%, and a lot more than that. So if the Iranians decide that their only real defense against Israel and the United States attacking again is to have a nuclear weapon, they're in a position to achieve it now. I don't want them to do it. I hope they don't, because if they do, then the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Egyptians, the Turks will all go and develop nuclear weapons. And that's the last thing we need. What we need is a nuclear weapon-free zone. Israel has to get rid of its weapons. Iran has to give up its weapons program, if it has any. And we need to have a peaceful development policy that everybody can participate in the region. And that would be the basis of Israeli security security and not nuclear arms.
Absolutely, and very important what you just said, that none of the objectives have been achieved, because this is what other experts are also saying, that regime has not been changed. Khamenei has been replaced with another Khamenei. Nuclear capabilities have not been destroyed as well. People have not really taken over the streets, something that Donald Trump was demanding from the people of Iran. Stay on with us. We have another breaking update coming in. We're learning that Iran and Oman have announced a fee on vessels transiting reopened Strait of Hormuz. As we've been telling you, that was one of the points as far as the 10-point plan of Iran is concerned, that they will be seeking $2 million per vessel passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and that will be shared between Iran and Oman. And that is the reason why now we're witnessing that Iran and Oman have announced that they will be charging a transiting fee on the reopened Strait of Hormuz. Rishabh, do shed more light on this, because that was one of the points mentioned by Iran in their 10-point peace plan. They had mentioned that they would be reopening the Strait of Hormuz, but they will be charging money and they will be sharing that money with their neighbor Oman.
Well, definitely. See, Iran was very clear that they would come on table if they are paid for all the losses they have incurred in the last 40 days of this war. Today happens to be the 40th day since the war began, 28th of February, and today is 8th of April. So in last 40 days, the way things have unfolded in Iran, they have incurred huge losses to their infrastructure, to their civilian areas, to their industrial areas, and also to their critical infrastructures as well. And they wanted a clear payout for reconstruction of these infrastructures. In the first six demands that came in, the payout was essential. The second, the 10-point agenda that came in from Tehran, spoke about that if the payment does not come from Israel and US directly, they would like to levy taxes, a transition fee on the ships that transit through the Strait of Hormuz, and that fee would be divided between Oman and Iran. Now, that is something that in principle has been agreed upon, and that's the reason that we are seeing that a $2 million fee on every vessel that transit through the Strait of Hormuz would be charged with. This money, Iran says, would be used for the reconstruction of all the damages that they have incurred in last 40 days. Now the major question is, 14-day truce has been announced from both the sides. Whether this is a truce or just a pause and before we see another round of hostilities in West Asia. As of now, the third player in this conflict, Israel, hasn't come out with a clear statement whether they agree to this truce or not. In past, we have seen while US was looking for an off-ramp, Israel wanted to go all guns open on Tehran. Now, the major question is, the GCC countries will definitely welcome this step, given that they were the primary targets of Iran. All the US bases, the US companies in Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, UAE and Saudi were at the target of Iran. So they would definitely welcome this. But will Israel agree to this or not is something that we all are waiting. As of now, we haven't heard an official word coming in from Jerusalem.
Absolutely, clarity from Israel is still awaited, because in the last few days they have clearly mentioned that they do not want a temporary ceasefire, because their objectives, they have not still achieved their full objectives as far as the war is concerned. Stay on with us. We have another breaking update coming in. Despite the ceasefire announcement by Donald Trump, we're learning that Iran continues to hit Israel again. In fact, just a while back, alarms were sounded across the country. Central and southern Israel has come under attack. They have been targeted. These areas have come under attack. Blasts have also been reported in Beersheba. Attacks continue post the ceasefire announcement, and that is why what Rishabh just told us is very important. Shinto, I want to come to you on that, because Rishabh, as he pointed out, that there is no clarity that is coming from Israel. In the last few days, they have made it quite clear that they will not agree to a temporary ceasefire, because they are yet to achieve their objectives as far as the war is concerned. And despite the ceasefire announcement, we can see that Iran continues to bomb Israel. So In the lack of any clarity as far as Israel is concerned, the bombing continues. Give us more perspective on this.
Very simply, these 3-4 missiles that have been launched, we don't know who launched them really, whether they were aware of the ceasefire or not. But let's hope these were the last missiles that were launched in this part of the fighting. Because if there is a 14-day ceasefire and all 3 countries are involved, then it would be much easier to arrive at a permanent solution. Maybe, as people say, there will not be a permanent solution. But the whole point is that if the ceasefire can be stretched from, let's say, 14 days to 140 days, it would be a great triumph for the entire region, for America, for Israel, for Iran, and all the Gulf states, and the entire region, perhaps the world. So that's what everyone aspires to do at this point, stretch the ceasefire. And the belief is that yes, there are differences, yes, there are sticking points, yes, there are objections, but it's easier to address sticking points when you're not fighting, as opposed to when you're going bombing each other. So that's very, very important, and it's important to ensure that peace prevails.
Absolutely, and that is why next 14 days are going to be very important. This is what we know so far, that there is a conditional ceasefire plan in place, and the condition as far as US is concerned is that there should be a complete and safe reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.